in the introduction, I'll just quickly summarize. Today, we really want to focus on hearing two shared value stories from Enel and Abbott. We've got Kathy Pickett here as the Divisional Vice President from Abbott, who has led this journey for that company, first starting in the foundation and CSR, and ultimately moving and embedding it in the business. And we've got Maria Cristina Papetti, who is the Head of Sustainability Projects and oversees the entire shared value agenda for Enel, which is a $100 billion Italian energy company that now operates in 29 countries across 4 different continents, and is doing really amazing things to think about how to transform into a green power producer moving forward. Now that we've gotten out of the way your ability to know how to send in feedback, all the notes we got about the audio not working, you know how to enter a question for our panelists as they go through their stories. So let's go ahead and start with Kathy. And Kathy, again, thanks for joining us. Kathy's in Argentina, usually in Chicago. So Kathy, thanks for being here. Let's start with you. How did Abbott come to start the shared value journey, see it as relevant to its business growth and innovation opportunities, and really how did you get started?
Sure. Justin, thank you so much for this invitation to be with you here today, and thanks everyone for the time to discuss what Abbott has done in the area of shared value. And Justin, you're absolutely correct when you say that these shared value journeys are a journey. It couldn't be more of a fact. You know, Abbott started to really think about how we could use our foundation to drive transformational change in areas where we had expertise. So clearly nutrition was one of our first starting places. And we thought that we could use the foundation to incubate some really novel ideas around how to address things like malnutrition through market-based strategies. And it was first in Haiti, where we had been working with a nonprofit called Partners in Health. They had come to us asking for expertise in how we could improve a product that they were making and sourcing locally. It was Nurimamba. It is a ready-to-use therapeutic food, and it is saving lives for them in their malnutrition clinics. But they had some questions about their product. You know, they couldn't get the amount of product made that they needed to meet demand. They were not sure about quality, to help with formulation as well. And so we took a team down to and restructured how they were making it, including the value chain of how they were sourcing locally grown peanuts. But we needed a partner in that. You know, we are experts in terms of manufacturing, but we depend on others for supply. And it was TechnoServe, an NGO, that really worked with us in Haiti to fortify farmers with training and skills and knowledge, as well as strategies by which they were going to change how they farm peanuts and address quality of the peanuts and the volume of peanuts that they were producing. What happened was that this partnership between an NGO, Partners in Health, another NGO, TechnoServe, that had acute skills and abilities in working with farmers, and Abbott, transformed how this product was being made. And I had the good fortune to take down a group of seniors from the business to see this program in action. And with me came John Janaskal, who was and remains our head of global supply chain in Abbott Nutrition. And I'll remember this instance, you know, forever, when he was standing in the middle of a peanut farm talking to TechnoServe farmers whose income had increased at that time about 150%. It went on to 300%, which is incredible. But I remember John turning to me and saying, if we can do this in Haiti with peanuts for a product that's being made here, why can't we do this in India and solve a nutritional problem that we have in terms of a supply chain problem that we have? And luckily, we knew that TechnoServe had a program and an office in India, and we went to work. So if you go to my slides right now, you can see that there are, in this first introductory slide, 2 individuals. This is what our supply chain looks like in India. These are suppliers to our supplier from whom we buy milk. But we knew in working with the farmers in India that there was a tremendous opportunity to take the learnings that we had in Haiti and apply this thinking and these actions in our business context. And what we had is we were able to demonstrate what success looked like with a foundation program, and we lifted up those assets and those skills, and we brought it into our value chain. So on the next slide, you can see that 70 million Indian households depend on dairy for their income. We knew that there was a significant opportunity here to really improve and work with the local farmers, but it was going to be different than what our value chains look like in different parts of the world. Moving on to the next slide. In order for John and the Abbott Nutrition supply chain team to meet its objectives, they had a commitment. They wanted to source their milk in India for the Indian products. It helped with price, it helped with the government's Made in India campaign, and it helped efficiencies for the business. But we had to do a couple of things, very similar to what was happening in Haiti. We needed to improve the quality and quantity of our milk upstream from our suppliers. So again, we worked with TechnoServe to address key issues, and we started off with training, and this continues today. We started with 1,500 smallholder dairy farmers and trained them on all kinds of aspects of how to improve the quality of the milk that they were providing to our supplier. It was about introducing veterinary care, thinking about fodder, addressing aflatoxin in terms of the food. How do you source clean water? What else can you do in terms of business skills for the farm? That was a tremendous transformation for them. We also needed to look at infrastructure. With the help of the very able FSG team, and we can't stress enough the assistance that we got from them in terms of helping us think through these work streams of programs. We looked at what was happening with the milk that the farmers were delivering to our supplier. We knew that there was a gap when it came to cold chain. And what we did is, from a citizenship perspective, we took our resources, which typically could have gone to charitable purpose, and we invested those resources in 10 bulk milk chillers so that the milk was getting immediate refrigeration. And at those sites, we also added a layer of quality testing. So in this next slide, you can see there's a woman, one of our female dairy farmers, that's pouring her milk. That milk will be tested for quality, and it will also go to immediate refrigeration so that it stays cool in the supply chain going to our supplier. But we also really focused on women. What we saw was when we were training women, there was a sharp uptake in adherence to the training programs and modules. There's a 30% increase in yield when female farmers had the same access to resources as men, and we wanted to double down and make sure that those women were receiving the training that they needed to succeed. So finally, we're on to our next step. This took a very short time to get implemented, up and running, and for us to get some really great data in terms of how this was being effective. Now what we have is the means by which we can expand this, and our supplier in India is going to be critical. They'll reach 200 additional villages by 2020.
You at Enel, and I hand it over to Maria Cristina. One thing I'd ask you to think about as you hear from both Kathy and Maria Cristina, as I said, is the journey, as Kathy said as well, that these companies are on. When we started this work of the Shared Value Initiative 5 years ago, there was a lot of time focused on the what, explaining what companies could do to address social problems. And of course, the conversation has changed, and now that basic concept that companies can be productive contributors to solving social problems is more well accepted and part of dialogues like at the Paris Climate Change Accord or the UN Sustainable Development Goals. But now the dialogue is really focused on how. If we believe that companies can be productive drivers of social change through shared value, how do they do that? And companies like Enel and Abbott are on this journey of how. How companies develop shared value strategies, how they're envisioned, prioritized, planned, and executed, as you heard in Kathy's story. How shared value is built into how the company operates, something Maria Cristina is going to talk about very clearly in the next section. how it's built into and we actually affect culture change to see social issues as opportunities for growth and innovation, and how things that may seem more mundane but frankly can be the key to unlocking shared value. Things like, how do we build shared value into annual planning processes, organizational structures, how we remunerate our employees, how do we recruit the next generation of talent? Key questions like this are in fact part of the promise of how do we do this work most effectively. And as you heard Kathy, and now I'll turn it to Maria Cristina to tell you about the Enel journey, you will hear and pick up on some of these hallmarks of this enterprise-level change. So Maria Cristina, let me hand it to you. The Enel story is a unique one and has taken a bit of a different approach than Abbott in a very different business. So tell us how Enel has gone about pursuing shared value.
Thanks a lot, because it's a great opportunity to share our journey, because as you said and Kathy said, it's a real journey. I will add a never-ending one, because each time, each step you take further, you understand there is a lot more, much more to learn. We started our journey through creating shared value in 2012. So not many years ago, and at the time we were involved, our CEO, Francesco Starace, at the time was at the head of Enel Green Power. Enel Green Power was at the time the small renewable company inside the huge utility of Enel Group. And so what he was really focused on was trying to get business opportunities in terms of winning tenders and start the construction of renewable plants, most of all in the so-called emerging markets. I'm talking about Latin America. And that one was exactly our, let's say, turning point. Our turning point happened in Guatemala, in Palo Viejo, because we got the opportunity to start up the construction of a renewable asset. We were very satisfied, very happy, because we were talking about clean and green power. So we were really focused on how to design and define the best possible solution in terms of engineering, knowing exactly everything about innovative solutions, about wind and hydro and solar and whatever. But then what happened on feed? When we start the operation, not even the operation, let's say the construction phase, we understood all of a sudden that inside our value chain, that specific phase was really the most impacting one. And maybe that we had to consider not only few stakeholders, the suppliers, for instance, the institutions, and whatever, but most of all the communities that were living close to the plant we were going to build. And that was really a mess, if I can say this word, because no one even wanted to listen to them and to understand that there were people living close to our business opportunity, and that they were really not aware of, first of all, what Enel was, what we wanted to do there, and they started rioting, blocking the construction phase. So it's a business issue, because as you can imagine, for us, it meant losing a lot of money at the time. So we understood that the approach that up to that moment, Enel as a group and Enel Green Power at the same time following, talking about the corporate social responsibility or philanthropy, building up the school or whatever the community were asking us, was not the right solution, was a kind of reactive approach. And we understood that we had to move fast in the opposite way, in the proactive approach. And to us, just to summarize and very fast what is at Enel, the creating shared value approach is exactly this: being proactive rather than reactive, understanding the context, understanding all the stakeholders, working close with the communities that are living around our asset or our business opportunity, and trying to work together with them. We changed completely also our strategy. But Enel at the time was looking and working inside the value chain. So in terms of business development, at the very beginning of our value chain, the opportunity was understanding the context, understanding the stakeholders, and understanding what was material, so meaning important for the stakeholders and for us. Then the second step of our value chain was the engineering and construction. And over there, in that specific case, we could, and we are doing actually now also at Enel, we can innovate a lot, fostering a lot of opportunities that the communities living around our asset can also catch being part of. And this is, let's say, the easiest part of the shared value approach that we can understand. What do I mean? We started, right because in the business development phase, we understood our context, to involve the community in the construction phase right from the beginning. For instance, trying to foster new small enterprises at local level to serve with a lot of different services during the construction phase. What does it mean? It means education, but these mean most of all job opportunities for laundry service, transport services, and many other things, food services, for instance. You can imagine when you start the construction of the plants, normally it lasts more or less 2 years, let's say. And so in that 2 years' time, you have people from the area that can work and learn how to run their own small enterprises, and then they can work for many other companies or for many other local situations that can happen locally. That was the beginning, and we started over there doing exactly in this way. And that makes a huge difference, not only in relationship in the long run with all the stakeholders, but also for us, because for us was cost saving, let's say decreasing the risk of starting operation in an area where no one is aware of what you are doing, and was also finding and testing new innovative solutions. When you are in this journey is innovation, because you are reshaping the way you are doing things inside your company. So you can reshape your organization, you can reshape your procedure, and then what's amazing, you will end reshaping the entire value chain. I'm talking about suppliers and all the people that are working with and for the company. Also with NGOs, the approach is different now. It's completely different. So it's really a kind of movement. It's like a snowball that is going to grow up. This is my experience. So a lot of barriers, but then a lot of opportunities.
Great. Thanks, Maria Cristina. Before I turn to Kathy, let me, Maria Cristina, something you said there actually picked up on a question that Frank, one of our attendees, had submitted. Can you give the folks on the webinar a sense of, I know it's a big question here, but his question was, so how does Enel innovate? How do you bring in new ideas? I mean, particularly in a business like yours, where the future of energy production feels like it's literally changing, kind of moment by moment with new entrants, even some who have achieved tremendous scale in a short time frame. So I know it's a big question, but can you give us a sense of what innovation looks like in Enel?
I love this question because it's a practical way to demonstrate what I said up to now. First of all, you know that sustainability, Justin, but sustainability at Enel is inside a huge function that is innovation and sustainability, because innovation comes from process internally and externally. And then what we understood that innovation does not belong to the company only. And we are talking about technical innovation because we are talking, as I told you before, now we are also developing new products. Things about the electronic meter, the mini the mini grids, off-grid or on-grids. Think about the electric mobility and what does it mean in terms of recharge your car, vehicle to grid and whatever. So there are a lot of innovative products, and very, very often innovation is not inside your company, it's outside the company. So it was also important to understand that there are a lot of young startuppers. There were a lot of early stage companies that were dealing with innovative ideas, but they had no money to invest on that. So what we did was open up, that's why we call us Open Power, to innovative ideas, calling also for ideas from the outside, investing in these kind of companies or startups, and also open up, at the moment there are 4 or 5, because we inaugurated one also yesterday in Russia, another innovation apps. So we have innovation apps in Russia now, in Israel, in Denmark, in San Francisco, so in California, and we are opening up these kind of apps because innovative products and solutions are from the outside the company. Then, recently, the person that took the place of Francesco Sperace in Enel Green Power, so in the renewable division, has been put at the head of a new division, which is E-Solutions. E-Solution is exactly what we are talking about, trying to push the new the new strategic plan that our CEO and the top manager designed, reshaping the way a utility can stay in the market in the long run, moving faster to renewable energy and to new services and products. So these are, I think, practical examples of the way we are dealing with innovation.
Great. Thank you, Maria Cristina. Now, as I turn to Kathy with the same question about barriers, I want to pick up on something Maria Cristina said in her answer about innovation, and it picks up on the question that Dario submitted about whether smaller size companies, we're featuring 2 large multinationals here, and whether smaller companies can have shared value strategies. I think one of the things in Maria Cristina's answer that starts to get to that is, of course, we see many social enterprise-oriented startups who, in fact, if anything, are building the shared value mindset into the very DNA of the company from the get-go. We want to use a business model to try to address a social issue, and that's what we're aiming at. You see many innovations in energy, in nutrition, in food that aim to do just that. I think it is right in Dario's question that he points out that much of the work of the Shared Value Initiative is honestly in working with the biggest companies to try to re-imprint that DNA of seeing social issues as relevant to the business as part of our work. So it brings me then, Kathy, to you, and the bridge point I would make here is you work at a healthcare company. One of the most common questions I get when I hear the barriers question within companies like yours and pharmaceutical or medical device companies is sort of the idea of, well, we're in health. Doesn't that mean that everything we do has both a business and a social purpose to it? What's different here? So I'm curious, from your perspective and having been on this journey for a number of years, have you heard that hesitation, or what other barriers have you encountered as you try to drive this thinking through Abbott?
Sure, Justin, and that's a great point. I mean, if you think about companies that are in health, the fundamental purpose is good. But I think that you dig a little bit deeper into how, and you start to see those opportunities. So it's about making sure that as you examine the value chains, of each individual business within Abbott, you see those opportunities that you can do more, work more inclusively, and think more strategically about driving products that are specifically geared towards patients who don't have access right now. So shared value can be a very effective tool in helping us achieve some of those key material issues that our stakeholders are really pushing on us to do. Access, thinking about innovative products, thinking about how we reach patients who can't access products. How do I think about our supply chain? These are all opportunities and entry points for shared value. And when you get to the question about obstacles, and the question that you raised of does it just work in a large company? It works in a company of any size where people are willing to look at the competitive landscape, see how companies, large or small, are really advancing and integrating shared value as a business strategy to be more competitive, to be a partner at the table for a variety of stakeholders. And one of the things that we've really had to do internally is to build an alliance. I mean, we don't go it alone. And having the proof of concept with what we've been doing with supply chain and dairy has been a huge step forward. But along the way, we started to have conversations with the investor relations team, our chief financial officer. We also reached out to different stakeholders within the company, like our chief economist, who's willing to say, I believe in this so strongly, I'm willing to write a white paper with you all. Those are really important alliances to build internally, but you don't have to just look internally for alliances. You also have external factors. I think one of the big shifts in some of our executives' thinking came when there was a shared value conference in India, and there you all had featured the CEO of Walmart, the CEO of McKinsey, and the way that they were presenting the competitive advantage of shared value really helped us influence our internal stakeholders to do more. So those are always great levers to pull on and things that help get at what is at the heart of this, a shift in business strategy for any company, whether you're small or large and you've been around for over 100 years. Sometimes it's a little bit needs a push to get some of those new business strategies incorporated into the plan for the long term and identify the necessary funding.
Great. Thanks, Kathy. One question came through from our friend David Laurel in the Philippines, which I really like, a great question for both of you. Kathy, you were just getting this near the end of your answer here about, fundamentally how Abbott sees itself as a company and how it prioritizes new opportunities. But David's question is, sort of what's the end game? What's the goal in embedding shared value into each of your companies? Is the idea that it then becomes a way of doing business? How would you describe it? What road do you think you're on, and what would the end game look like? Who wants to start?
I'm happy to start. Look, the end game is about being competitive and making sure that we are mitigating risks, just deriving opportunity and increasing value. And that's what we're all about. And you think about what we can do and what impacts we can make on society. And we want to drive those kinds of business strategies that scale innovative solutions, and we want to position the company to be competitive in the future.
Great. Maria Cristina?
I absolutely agree with what Katie was saying. It's a matter of being competitive, and most of all, being competitive in the long run. I think that shared value gives us the great opportunity to stop this short-term fundamentalism, what I call it. We need to understand what are the role of the companies, because profit is what the company has to do for their shareholders, not only shareholders, also all the stakeholders. And so bringing value for the companies, which means for sure also efficiency, mitigating risk. So there are a lot of, it's really a way to reshape the way you are doing your business in a different way, being more excellent, but also reducing your costs, reducing your risk, and stay in the market in the long run, taking care about customers, because nowadays we have more than 60 million customers all over the world, and customers do care about the way a company behaves in its own industry. It's an opportunity, it's a competitive advantage, because also investors and analysts are looking deeply and they are making due diligence about the way you are doing it. And you are repaid because at the very end you understand and you see the value of what you are doing in respect of investors and the way analysts are talking about you. If you walk the talk, of course, that makes a huge difference. So it's really a matter of catching business opportunities. And as far as us, because we are a utility, so we are in the energy sector, you know better than me that the issue of access to electricity is not something, we can only discuss in huge debates, but we need to execute and try to solve. We cannot solve alone, but in solving this kind of issue, which is a global issue, we can also find innovative solutions, innovative products, and so to us is business. It's being competitive and staying in the market.
Great. One other question from Frank that I like that I'm going to pose to both of you as a closing question before we talk about where everyone on the webinar can access additional resources and opportunities for learning. When we started the shared value journey, and both Maria, Christina, and Kathy know this, we started very much, as you heard in both of their answers, around the competitive strategy side, how it creates value, a return on investment within shared value to make the case. But along the way, and Frank's question gets at the point of values. And do you see certain values in the leaders in your companies that would be that they would have that you think that make them more inclined to want to go on this journey? And I'll extend Frank's question a little bit by also adding, do you find when you're trying to attract and retain the next generation of talent that they view the company and its activities in community and society differently, and so that also pushes you? Maria Cristina, should we start with you? How important are the values of Mr. Storace, in addition to what we know is important that you just talked about in creating the business value for these initiatives?
Let's say relevant, absolutely relevant. Said before, is a matter of be coherent. I loved the expression that you said, or someone of your guests during the Climate Week in New York. Is a matter of, in an old style way, we say, walk the talk. I love this millennial sentence now, you do you. Because it's a matter of being what you are, be coherent of what you are, taking care, because what does it mean? Corporate social responsibility nowadays. Everyone should be responsible. And I think that the future generation, which are our future customers, at the very end of all of us, Abbott, Enel, all the companies that are in the market, in business, do take a lot of care about the way you are doing things. And now, thanks to social media, communication tools we all have at disposal, it's quite easy to understand if a company you want maybe to work with, or you want to buy some products or whatever, are serious about in sustainability or not. So it's not only a matter of reading, reporting, and whatever. That's important. This is disclosing your financial issue in a different way. And this is another topic we can discuss for hours. You do you is something that everyone is looking carefully nowadays, according to me. And that's make the difference.
Great. Kathy, I know in your journey you've had a lot of interactions and exposure with the CEO and others on the executive team. How important are their values, and how does that figure into how you continue to sell the concept of shared value into the business?
Yeah, and I think that is a very important point. And I think that if any leader of any company or large corporation is serious about their commitment to citizenship, sustainability, they need to embrace the kinds of strategies that make the most impact on the people that they're trying to assist. And shared value is that. I mean, we have done so much analysis around what traditional philanthropy can do versus catalytic philanthropy versus shared value, and hands down, if we want to change opportunity for people we are trying to deliver citizenship programs to. We need to give them opportunity. And, as my very good friend Milan Verveer says, opportunity is everywhere. Potential is everywhere. Opportunity is not, And that gets to the point of what business can do when they work inclusively in communities. And I have seen, women from SEVA, the Self-Employed Women's Association in India. I stood in the dump with a woman who had, because of a lack of opportunity, had been relegated to picking plastic and paper for $1 a day. And I asked her how we're going to break this cycle of poverty, and she said, "Go talk to my daughter." And I went down to the SEVA headquarters, and there she was in her sari. And I said, "What's your job today?" And she said, "I negotiate the contract with the multinational who we sell to." And it has transformed that family's life. And I think those kinds of opportunities, by giving them training and an opportunity to be part of the global economy, is really very meaningful.
Great, excellent. And I know Maria Cristina has to catch a flight, so we thank her for her participation if she needs to drop off. And let me turn now to the next slide and thank Kathy and Maria Cristina, again calling in from Rome and from Argentina today, to really get to our third learning objective here, which is how to get you all involved if you want to be in accessing the initiative and its resources. So let's go to the next slide. So as I mentioned at the outset, but many of you couldn't hear, the initiative is a community of practice, an open community of practice. We have 15,000 community members on sharedvalue.org where you can post information and blog posts there and get feedback from others. And to be explicit, both Maria and Cristina of Enel and Kathy from Abbott are our partners. They're members of the Shared Value Initiative, part of this group of 50 organizational partners. So companies like theirs and practitioners like them engage with dozens of other companies and funders and nonprofits, all oriented around shared value, to help us produce research on the latest shared value practices, to learn from each other most critically about what's working and how in shared value and influencing culture and strategy development. So even though both Kathy and Maria Cristina today came from very different businesses, they have a lot they can learn from each other in this journey, particularly internally, of how they go about changing their organizations. And of course, we also serve as a conduit to help practitioners like Kathy and Maria Cristina access our global network of funders, leading NGOs who partner with corporations, our regional partners. We run Shared Value Initiative platforms with partners in India, Australia, Hong Kong, and we have one coming on in South Africa very soon. So if any of you companies, organizations want to join the initiative, we'd certainly welcome those conversations. Please let us know. Next slide, please. If you enjoyed today and want to have a little bit deeper learning experience and be a little bit more immersed in the concepts you heard about today, you could join the Harvard Business School Executive Education course coming up just a little bit under 2 months from today. Applications are now open under the Harvard Business School Executive Education website. This is taught in the Harvard Business School case teaching method, and it's taught by the co-authors of the Shared Value article, Michael Porter and Mark Kramer. And the class also attracts the CEOs typically of the cases that are being featured, if that's of interest to you. So last year, for instance, in class with about 75 students, we had Doug McMillan, the CEO of Walmart, talking about Walmart's approach to shared value. This is really an immersive 3-day experience with other executives that come from around the globe. Next slide, please. A little further into the future, but something to put on your radar, is our upcoming Shared Value Summit, May 1st and 2nd in 2018. And this is really our key annual event, focused again on practitioners and hearing from some CEOs about the latest in practice of shared value. If you found that this webinar helped you, but you want a bit more, you'll notice here on the left of the screen that we're going to hold a little bit extended workshop on how to start your shared value journey the day before the summit. So we'll send along more details about that, and we certainly encourage you to join us either for the event itself or for that workshop the day before. And then finally, on sharedvalue.org, you will find extensive resources frankly, an overload of information, all available for free for registered members, from case studies to industry reports to geographic studies of how shared value is working in different places around the world. Now, what you'll also receive from us after this webinar is a playback link for the webinar itself if you want to share with colleagues. And in addition, through all of the information we have cultivated some resources that are specifically around getting started. So we will send you a link to all of that. As a final note of closing, I thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate those of you sticking with us when we had the earlier technical difficulties. Hope it was very useful to you, and we'll be in touch. And again, thank you so much for your time.